There we go, for background noise. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC in a moment, but first the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are going to be there in the description box. We have Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject. Please make sure that you get a look at that. It has pretty much all the receipts that the JRC likes to deny the existence of. Also included is Neuroclastic's article. Very, very noted because of the fact that that article is in regards to a survey they conducted with over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Why it's so important and why it got under the JRC's skin is because, in my opinion, it took away entirely their ability to do the most obnoxious and annoying version of going for, but we're the experts that exists on planet Earth. Therefore, they decided to threaten Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit. They did not remove that article in which that survey was well displayed from their website. Neuroclastic refused, so folks, please go ahead, read that article, share on all your social media. We also have Neuroclastic's GoFundMe link in there as well, just in case the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center ever decides to follow through with their threat. Main reason being, unlike them, we do not have access to unlimited streams of money. Alright, folks, trigger warnings when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys. You're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please go ahead and utilize the headphones. Also, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child's 16 and younger and they are watching this, parental supervision is advised. I do want to let you all know, in regards to Medicaid, that has expanded beyond my wildest dreams when I began the original mini-series on it. I can no longer actually call that a mini-series anymore because there's still more facets to go into that are going to be directly impacted by the $2.3 trillion over 10 years that our current GOP wants to take away from the programs. We're going to be talking waiting lists, job programs, transition services. Yeah, this touches about every single facet of the service system. So we're going to be going through all of that. I'm going to start doing those, as you all have noticed, out on the weekends. Now, in regards to me doing lives, I know, it's practically almost been a year since I've done my last live. I apologize for that, I really do, but I'm kind of up to my neck in it right now because we aren't just working with ARC, People First, ASAN, and all the other groups out there in regards to Medicaid, but also the way those two morons are kamikazing and absolutely destroying Social Security as well as supplemental security income. We're probably going to have to start getting into that too. So keep your eyes out for those. If you could share them, we would appreciate it. Mainly because most folks off the street, unless they have a child in the service system, don't really understand the kind of threat that much money being taken out of the system actually poses to those of us who are a part of the service system and rely on things like supplemental security income and like Medicaid and Medicare. All right. Now, we're going to go back to where we did yesterday. In fact, I think I'm going to be rereading something because the JRC likes to try to sneak more gaslighty stuff in there that sometimes require another read. So we're going to go back to where we were last night, halfway down the paragraph here. Alright, here we are. Yes. Word salad delight, please send help. FDA has steadfastly refused to evaluate this small group of individuals, review treatment records, or inspect JRC, all while claiming that no matter what evidence JRC or JRC parents submit, there is not adequate evidence establishing that the treatment is effective. That is because JRC, they are correct. They are absolutely correct. Not only are they correct, but they gave a very detailed explanation into why what evidence you tried to produce and push forward could not be considered adequate in any sense of the word. But since the JRC does like to have selective short-term memory, allow me to go again and remind you what that actually was, shall we? Good. The majority of the quote-unquote objective sources that the JRC tried to use to argue in favor of their torture device were so beyond outdated, the fact that they even had two balls to present it to the panel as something in their favor completely blows my mind. Because even if I was corrupt, evil, sadistic as they were, I would understand that trying to produce studies for 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago to argue in favor of whatever pseudoscience insanity I'm trying to push, that no one that is worth anything in this field is going to take that sort of quote-unquote evidence seriously. The controls that were required during the times when those studies were conducted are no longer the same. Things that were not really necessarily considered in the 70s and the 80s, in particular in regards to risks that have to do with psychological health, didn't even exist back then. Number two, using outdated studies in defense of your torture device, which did not exist in any form during that time period, as so-called evidence in how safe and effective it is, makes no coherent sense whatsoever. Even being devil's advocate, it makes no sense. When the FDA is asking for objective data and objective clinical studies, what they are referring to is they want something current. I mean, at a stretch, they may be willing to go back 10, 15 years or so. Maybe. And that's a really big maybe. Number two, they would only consider it if it was in regards to the actual device in question. Providing clinical studies and crap in regards to different therapies than the one that is being argued about here is just stupid. Like, what in God's name did you actually think was going to be the reaction to that? That was a literal waste of everyone, and I do mean everyone's time. Number three, the so-called clinical study that had to do specifically with the GED that you presented as so-called evidence was dismissed out of hand because of conflict of interest. Now, come on, JRC. I know you're not really that damn stupid. Okay? You are the place that's in question here. The device that you designed and created is what's on the chopping block. So why would anyone in their right goddamn mind accept whatever clinical study that you put forward, that you conducted within the school in question here, as evidence? It's not objective. The people who are conducting the study have a financial stake in trying to say, yes, it's effective, it's wonderful. Okay? What an actual objective study would look like would be a study conducted off JRC grounds by individuals, experts, and professionals who do not have a single connection to the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center whatsoever. The reason why that data does not exist is literally everyone that has been asked, including Yale. You remember Yale? I did a video on them a few years back where they actually did a clinical study where they essentially blasted radiation into the frontal cortex of autistics to see if it would change behavior. Even them said, no, we will not conduct that study with that device, and they cited both civil rights violations that they felt like they might be committing just by doing such a study, as well as other ethical concerns. And folks, what the JRC won't tell you is it was literally everyone. Every research project, every major university, every single person that had the criteria and the education to conduct this actual study refused to do so. Every last one of them citing ethical concerns. So that is why the JRC cannot produce anything current that could be actually considered objective that the panel would actually give credence to, because everybody else said no. Okay, literally everyone. Think about that for a minute. Literally, not just within the United States either, but even abroad, everybody said no. Okay? So yeah, that's why the evidence that you and the parents, so-called evidence that you brought forward, was not treated seriously. Because anyone within their right mind would not treat it seriously. Okay? It's a joke. We've gone over why it is a joke. But as is your usual toddler-like manner, you're going to once again plug your fingers in your ears and hum, scream really loud, and then repeat the same complaints over and over and over again without acknowledging that everything you're bringing up has already been addressed multiple times. Okay? Yeah. And again, with the propaganda tour. Now, I've explained how this works on other occasions. There is a group of folks that get together when enough reports of concern are received. This particular group is one that I have dubbed when things go wrong. So, when you get the group of those who come out when things have gone wrong, the last thing we are looking to do is A, give you all a heads up, and B, consent to another propaganda tour. Like, you don't understand. If we are coming to you, you've done something wrong. Very wrong. We don't want your propaganda. We don't want your excuses. We don't want your lies. We want to see the things that you don't want us to see. Hence why when said group gets together, after reviewing enough reports of abuse, neglect, and starvation, why we go unannounced. Okay? And by the way, JRC, you throwing up a stink about that does not help convince anyone that you're just innocent little lambs being targeted and martyred for no reason. It has all the red flags. Literally all of them. Now, the FDA refuses to acknowledge it. First of all, they did not refuse to acknowledge it. They painstakingly went through, like, beyond outdated clinical studies and then provided detailed explanations as to why they did not consider that serious evidence. You, as usual, just don't want to hear it. But yeah, you can't sit there, well, they refused to acknowledge what we brought to them and not gave it the same weight as everybody else. It's not an excuse. When they actually did go over that information, they explained to you why it could not be accepted in detail. Yet here we are again saying, but that's not fairs. Really? Really? Alright, now we're going to go ahead and burst into the top half of the new paragraph here and prepare yourselves for more inevitable gaslighting. The parents in particular have repeatedly tried to provide information to FDA. Since 2014, when the FDA began proposing to ban the ESD treatment for SIB and AB, FDA has disregarded the parents' comments, testimony submissions to the record, and they're pleased to evaluate the data and information at JRC that the ESD treatment has helped their adult children when no other treatments were able to do so, and their adult children would suffer devastating consequences without the access to the treatment. Can we please stop with the run-on sentences? I know you all are sadistic. You have no heart, no compassion, no empathy or sympathy. But at the very least, could you please spare my brain for your rambling, never-ending sentences? It literally gives me a headache to read your guys' insanity. Okay? And for the love of God, when you're trying to put something out there that's professional, could you at least have somebody proofread it and edit it so it actually looks professional? Because this looks like the nonsensical rantings of a teenager trying to get out of trouble after being caught slipping out the window to go party with their friends at night by their parents. Okay? Motor mouth. Okay? Good God. First off, the parents are not, by any stretch of the imagination, unbiased. Okay? Also, those parents did not have any clear-cut, hard evidence to back them up the way that the survivors and their parents on the other side of the coin had actual medical documentation to back them up, among other things. You can provide all the parental testimony that you want to, But if there is no evidence to back it up, it's hearsay, nothing more. Okay? Jennifer Masumba came with receipts. Tori came with receipts. Cheryl and Andre McCollins came with receipts. Many other survivors who chose to have their names removed for the sake of their own safety and that of their families came, testified, and provided receipts. ER documentation for their mental health workers, their psychiatrists, and their psychologists. The doctors who actually wrote those ER documents for the folks that ended up in a damn hospital came and testified and authenticated the ER photos of the injuries. That is why their testimonies were given more weight than your parent testimonials. Because they had cold, hard evidence to back it up. They weren't just telling a story. This is not Amazon. You don't magically get off the hook because some people gave you good reviews while other people told everybody how insane you are. It's not how it really works inside this field. It is not hard to figure out why they didn't dismiss the parents' testimonies. Let's start there. They literally opened up the comments exactly because they wanted both sides to have a chance to have their say. It is not the FDA's fault that those parents provided no hard evidence to back up what they're saying. This is a federal department. This is not the Massachusetts court that you have wrapped around your fingers. This is a whole different ball game. They require a particular type of evidence to back up a point. If you do not have it, you're not going to be given the same weight as those folks on the other side that don't just have their testimony story, but with the ER documents, ER photos, and video surveillance footage to back it up. Alright? And please stop making me explain that. Let me continue, shall we? Submissions to the record and their pleas to evaluate the data and information at the JRC. Do you not understand how this works? We disregarded the JRC data because it's the JRC that's at stake. This is your device, JRC. It's your ass on the firing line. So we can't necessarily trust any data that you put forward in regards to a study that was conducted on your own grounds with any real seriousness, because it's your ass that's on the line. How are we supposed to trust that you and the other folks who were pulling those clinical studies are not going to skew things in favor of yourselves? We can't. There's no way to do that. Why? Because the people conducting the study have their paychecks signed by the JRC. They have a financial stake for the study to show in their favor. This is why usually most federal departments would insist on an actual objective study. Problem is, again, everybody else says no, citing ethical and human rights concerns. Okay? stop with, but you're not listening. You're just doing what the advocates told you to, and you won't listen to us because you're insane. You're evil, maniacal, pseudoscience-loving, batshit insane, mad scientists that belong to the old B horror movies era. Okay? You can't defend the indefensible. This is why you have horrific word-of-mouth diarrhea. Nonsensical word salad documents. Because no one can defend this. No one. And let me guess, but their children will suffer horrifying consequences without access. If you take my kid off the torture device, the behaviors will come back and it will get scaries. Life is fucking scary. And if you think neurotypical parents are somehow stress-free just because their kids' issues look different from ours, oceanfront property in Kansas for a penny. Do I got any buyers? All right? The parents who keep insisting on that are the ones who drank the Kool-Aid the deepest. Have you ever studied anything about cults? And I have, because that's one of the areas that fascinate me. You know that even as a parent, you can't necessarily say that their judgment and how they see things is unclouded. That is not to be mean or dismiss the parents. It's explaining reality. Okay? We can't operate on this level with just trust me, bruh. Okay? Even if it's well-meaning parents who just drink the Kool-Aid for so long that they just can't see through anything else. It has been explained multiple times. Why, in a case this goddamn important, like just word of mouth with no hard evidence to back it up, is not going to be taken as seriously as those on the other side telling their stories who actually do have the evidence to back it up. That's not being mean. That's not being preferential to the other side. That's just how things are supposed to work. You go with the side where the evidence is. It's really that simple. And with that, folks, we're going to go ahead and close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I will see you all again here in a few minutes. Bye, everyone.